Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. Firstly, a very big thank you for all of those joining us today, but also hello to everyone who is watching this at a later date. So I'm very excited to be presenting this webinar today. As you can see, we are going to be discussing Antarctica and South Georgia. Why this is so exciting is because Secret Atlas, as many of you know, we've been operating what we call the expedition micro cruise concept up in Svalbard, East Greenland, up in the Arctic, and we've been doing that very successfully for the past 6 years, and we've been running some of the most in-depth and some of the most meaningful expeditions in these destinations. But what we are incredibly excited to announce is that we are going to be replicating this philosophy of expedition micro cruises down in Antarctica and South Georgia on a vessel for just 36 passengers. So we'll be talking a bit about Antarctica, South Georgia as destinations today, and then we'll also be talking about our new ship later on in this webinar. But yeah, very warm welcome to everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lewis Morecambe. I'm one of the expedition specialists here at Secret Atlas. But before we go into anything in more depth, I just wanted to share a quick video with you all today. So I hope you enjoyed that video. So as you can see, a lot of that footage was actually taken down in South Georgia on an expedition we ran back in 2023, and then some of that was down in Antarctica. But yeah, that little fur seal in the tussock grass, that little shot, that really gets me every time. But you can just see the sheer abundance of wildlife. So of course, South Georgia, you've got the king penguins there in their thousands, the elephant seals, brilliant birding destination for the albatrosses, a variety of species of albatross, and then you've got some endemic birds such as the South Georgia pipit. So yeah, a real fascinating destination. And of course, Antarctica, still equally as rich with wildlife. So we've got the many penguin species. We've got the gentoos, the gin straps, the Delhi penguins. Also got a number of seal species, and then in the right season, it's an incredible destination for whales as well. So we'll talk a little bit about this today, but first we're going to discuss Antarctica and the White Continent. So where we explore. So this is a map of the Antarctica Peninsula. So we are firmly going to be focused on the peninsula. So many of our expeditions will be starting and ending in King George Island, which will be a fly-fly expedition. So on those expeditions, we've given our guests one of the longest and the most in-depth explorations of Antarctica. So we are hoping to push very far south. So a lot of the other operators are focused on sort of the north tip of the peninsula. But we are really hoping to push south on our expedition. So we are hoping to get past down in the Near Channel and really past the Antarctic Circle and away from the other ships and find that solitude and that sort of real sense of exploration, which some of those early expeditions had down to Antarctica. We do have a couple of sail and fly options as well, which we will discuss in a little bit more detail later. And of course, we have combination trips, which will be started in the Falklands, spending some time in South Georgia, and then on to Antarctica as well. So why micro in Antarctica? So micro is incredibly important for Antarctica. So firstly, we are members of IATO, which is a governing body of operators down in Antarctica. So all of our landing sites, it's planned in coordination with IATO. But why is micro so important for Antarctica? Well, firstly, there is the legislation in place. So no more than 100 guests are ever allowed to land at once in Antarctica. So if you are on one of the bigger ships, that is something to bear in mind. You know, if maybe half of the group will be getting off on an excursion, another half will be staying on the boat. Whereas with Secret Atlas, with just 36 guests, everyone can get off at once. So we can really feel the solitude of what Antarctica should offer. So imagine we're making a landing and we're going on a short hike like this. You know, we've got a team of 6 expedition guides to 36 guests. So you know, you can find your solitude. We'll split off into different groups, so you really feel like you are the only ones in Antarctica. So yeah, this is a little bit more about of sort of where we sail. So of course, the Antarctica Peninsula, the Gerlache Strait, of course, it is somewhere we're always gonna go through. But as I say, we really want to be pushing south on a lot of our expeditions, and we give you the time to do that. So you know, our expeditions, especially if you're a photographer, wanting to see as much wildlife as possible. You know, Antarctica. We never like to say it's a once in a lifetime destination, because once you go, you'll want to keep going back and back and back. But for a lot of people, we do truly understand that it is, and that's why we want to give you the most of your experience and the most in-depth experience that there is. So this sort of gives you a little bit of glimpse. So this is our new ship, which is just 36 passengers. Yeah, you can see we've got small group numbers per Zodiac. We're going to have 6 expedition team members as well. So you're going to have a lot of time with your expedition guides, which is really important and what makes these trips so transformative for some people and so educational as well. So as we say, just 36 on the whole ship. So this will be exclusive to Secret Atlas guests. But I feel what you get with that small group experience on the ship is you get a real family feel on board. So, you know, we all have breakfast, lunch, dinner together. That's including the expedition guides. We have the open bridge policy. So you can be up on the bridge with the captain, the first officers, scouting for wildlife, helping the expedition team scout for the wildlife as well. So yeah, that's what you get on a small micro expedition. And you can see some of our guests here. So of course, you can see a lot of people have got cameras or even their iPhones, but you know, being just a small group gives everyone the equal chance to get that incredible photograph of whether it's their chin strap penguins or the glaciers. Everyone has time. We're not on a rush. We're not on a schedule. You don't need to get back to the ship for a rotation of guests. You know, we can be off the ship for sort of 2 to 4 hours as long as guests are comfortable, guests are warm. That's not a problem. So as we say, a 1-to-6 guide ratio. It's one of the best ratios in the industry, and I think the expedition team and the expedition guides are really the ones who make any expedition, whether that's to the Arctic, Antarctica, whether it's to the Galapagos, whether it's to any expedition destination. The guides are the ones who make that expedition. So having 6 guides, now we're going to have 6 guides with 6 different specialisms on board our trips. So, you know, we are going to have your naturist. We're going to have, especially for South Georgia, we're going to have an ornithologist on board. We're going to have a photography guide. We're going to have a historian. We'll likely have a geologist. So it's a really broad spectrum of subjects that we're covering. And we're covering the whole, you know, the whole marine biology, for example. You know, we want to be running lectures and giving guests as much information to take home, because these destinations are incredibly fragile, and education is key into how to preserve these destinations as well. So we want to empower people to go back home and talk about these destinations, raise awareness of these destinations. So yeah, that 1 to 6 guide ratio is very, very important. So yeah, this is just a sense of what you are likely to see down in Antarctica. So you can see 3 of our zodiacs dwarfed by this iceberg. So icebergs are everywhere in South Georgia and Antarctica. So you see icebergs which will probably be 6, 7, 8 stories high. You get cathedral icebergs. You get many different types of icebergs, and being a smaller ship, you can actually get a little bit closer to these icebergs. But the best experiences is getting in the zodiacs and getting closer to this. Now, wildlife. Of course, everyone sees the beautiful pictures of the wildlife down in Antarctica. So of course, we've got the penguins. So we've got the Gentoo, we've got this chin strap, the Delhi penguins. So we're going to be seeing these in abundance on the peninsula. This is our picture was taken on a particularly snowy day in November. But as I've previously alluded to, we've got a lot of time on our trips, so we're going to be pushing further south. And once we're out of the Lemire Channel, pushing further south, we have got the opportunity to spot emperors as well. It's not by no means guaranteed. They're incredibly. We might see them in sort of 1s or 2s down past the Antarctic Circle. But pushing that far south, at least it gives us the option, and that's we'll be scouting for them, and that is a lot of the excitement. But Gentoo, chin straps, Adelis, you'll be seeing them in their hundreds. So yeah, you've got the beautiful chicks as well. So if you are looking to see chicks, we do really recommend going maybe in the later months. So sort of once we head past December, so January into February can be a really good time to be seeing the chicks in Antarctica. And of course, we've got the seals. We've got the leopard seal, the Weddell seal, elephant, Antarctic fur seal, crab-eater seal. So elephant seals are going to be incredibly common in South Georgia. We have mentioned the Ross seal as well. They're not as commonly spotted in the peninsula, but as we say, we are headed and pushing further south, so that does give us a chance to see a Ross seal as well. And of course, there is a whale species. So we have orcas, we have blue whales, we have humpbaits, we've got the white rails, we've got minke rails. We've got an incredibly rich whale population. So of course, the whale is down there to be feeding. They're feeding on the krill. So again, if one of your particular motivations is to spot whales, again, those later months of January, February, maybe even into March offers some of the best whaling experiences down there. Orcas, we're going to be, if we're pushing further south again, that opens up the opportunity to see orcas. So yeah, some beautiful shots from previous voyages. And yeah, of course, we've got the bird life as well. So we do have albatrosses, especially for those voyages which are sailing one way. Once if we're sailing south from Ushuaia down to Antarctica Peninsula, we do often get albatrosses following the ship. So that's a really great photography option. Of course, we've got the petrels, the cormorants, and the skuas as well. All of them are quite drawn to the ship. So as we are sailing through, we're often, bringing up nutrients and often sort of diving off the back of the ship and feeding on that marine life. And then there is the landscapes. So as we did speak about, we have got the icebergs, but we've got the glaciers as well. So we are dwarfed. This makes you feel incredibly small. And these are incredibly meaningful experiences in these glaciers down in Antarctica. And we're gonna be having a glaciologist often on board, and we'll be running lectures on board about the glaciers, the various types of glaciers, and how they benefit the ecosystem down in Antarctica as well. Yeah, so again, some beautiful, beautiful, especially on the peninsula, we've got lots of bays we can duck into, and often within the bays is where we're making a lot of our landings. So incredibly beautiful for landscape photography as well. And then we have the history and the culture. So what really amazes me on any voyage to Antarctica is you're often likely to encounter remnants of some of those early expeditions. So you are really following in the footsteps of some of those brave early expeditions, such as Cook, such as Ross, such as Scott, such as Shackleton, Amundsen, Galash. The list goes on. But we're gonna have a historian on board to share some of these incredible early feats and expeditions that took place. But there are remains. There are wrecks of some of these ships which weren't so successful. There are remains of some of the huts which some of these men had to build to survive in. So yeah, it's a really incredibly rich historical destination. And yeah, so here's some of the footage of some of those early explorers, and you can only imagine the conditions which they endured to reach Antarctica. Now, of course, you're in the luxury of a very comfortable expedition ship. So you're going to be very warm in your cabins. You're going to be very well fed on board. But always do take a moment to think back to some of these early explorers and what they must have endured to reach Antarctica. So we are offering free voyages to Antarctica. So as you can see here is the runway, the landing strip at King George Island. So this is one of our flights. So we've got three options. So we do have what we're calling the Antarctica Shackleton Special, or the South Georgia and Antarctica Shackleton Special. Sorry. So this voyage is one of our longer voyages. We are starting this particular voyage in Port Stanley, which is located in the Falklands. So for all of our voyages which start or finish in Port Stanley, one important consideration to remember is that we always time those voyages. We coincide in with the operation of the LATAM flight from Santiago to stop in Punta Arenas. So those voyages are coincided with that particular flight, which is a key logistic consideration. So we're starting in Port Stanley. This is a 20-day voyage, and we are finishing in Ushuaia. So for these voyages, as I say, it's about a 2.5-day crossing from Port Stanley in the Falklands to South Georgia. And we're aiming to give you as much time as possible in South Georgia on this voyage. So in an ideal world, we're looking at sort of somewhere between 5 and 6 days in South Georgia. And then again, we're going to be crossing down to Antarctica. If conditions are on our side, we might stop at Elephant Island. But once we get into the peninsula, again, we're looking to give you sort of 5 or 6 days now, dependent. Sometimes we might be giving you more time in South Georgia, waiting on a better weather window to do that crossing, or sometimes you might have a little bit less in South Georgia and more time in Antarctica. But in an ideal scenario, you're having 5 to 6 days in South Georgia, and also 5 to 6 days down on the peninsula, and then we sail back across, and that voyage will be finishing in Ushuaia. And then our second voyage is what we call in micro cruise by air and sea. So what this means, it means you will be crossing the Drake one way and flying the other way. So sometimes we'll be starting in Ushuaia, sailing down, cross the Drake Passage. Again, that's about a 3-day crossing, depending on the conditions. And then we'll be flying back to Ushuaia. Sorry, not to Ushuaia, to Puerto Natales, which I will touch on in a bit more information later. And then we have our fly-fly voyages. So our fly-fly voyages start and finish in Puerto Natales. And these give you the most amount of time in the peninsula. So if you're really looking to maximize your time in the peninsula, you're taking away free sailing days. So our sail and fly trips, they are 10-day trips. And then our fly are 11-day trips. So these do include our fly, it does include one pre-night in Puerto Natales and one post-night in Puerto Natales. But you are getting 8 full nights down in Antarctica if the weather conditions allow for it. So these are really in-depth itineraries. So those fly Antarctica ones, we've got them running over Christmas, we've got them running over New Year. So they're really, really good options for you. But before I go on to South Georgia, I do want to just touch a little bit more on Puerto Natales and why we're using it as a base. So I'm sure many of you know Punta Arenas has been used historically for fly cruise operations, but we find Punta Arenas to be very crowded these days. And, you know, a lot of other companies use Punta Arenas because it's got big hotels for their 200-300 guests. But because we're only 36 guests, we're actually working with a lodge in Puerto Natales called the Huáscar Lodge. So, as I say, we include one in all of our itineraries. One night is included at the start and at the end in Puerto Natales. And, you know, it's a much more smaller town. It's a beautiful town, very boutique, very nice places to go for lunch, just to explore the town. But especially if we do encounter a delay in the flight, which isn't uncommon for some of these flights, you know, we've got to have good conditions down in Antarctica for this flight to operate. So if we are delayed, we're in Puerto Natales. We're about an hour and a half from Torres del Paine. So if we're delayed, we can, and our expedition team are there, we can get the guests in to Torres del Paine to experience some of their excursions. So, you know, if we're delayed, instead of waiting in the hotel, we can get you out, we can get you seeing stuff. So that is one of the big benefits. And also, Puerto Natales, the airport, it's a much quieter airport. We're one of the only operators operating, so we've got a higher chance of taking off as well. And then this brings us on to South Georgia. So South Georgia is often referred to as the Serengeti of the South. Now, our South Georgia trips, we're focusing on September, October, into early November. So the seasonality of South Georgia, we're operating in September, which is quite early. But the beauty of going in September is we're going to be seeing king penguins in the snow. So your pictures are almost like you've taken a picture of a king penguin down in Antarctica, but it's in South Georgia. So you're going to get really beautiful shots of king penguins in the snow, which isn't very common. You don't often see them in the snow. If you're going in later season, the king penguins are going to be sort of on the tussock grass and the sort of brownie beaches. So really beautiful imagery, but also the light conditions in September, early October are incredible down in South Georgia. So we've got very, very long hours of good golden light. So it's a real beautiful time to go. But yeah, to talk about South Georgia. So as I say, so our South Georgia only, we're doing a South Georgia in-depth expedition. So this will be starting in the Falklands, and this is a 14-night expedition. So all being well, 2.5-day crossing to South Georgia, 9 full days in South Georgia. Now, no one else is offering 9 full days in South Georgia. A lot of other companies They'll be combined in South Georgia, Antarctica, Falklands, and you might get 3-4 days if you're lucky with good weather conditions. But we're offering you 9 days in South Georgia, and that is the time and the amount of time it deserves. So you can see our expeditions, we are firmly focusing on sort of the northeast coast of South Georgia, but you can just see all these beautiful bays, all of these which we can explore. So we've got Salisbury Plain, we've got Grytviken, which is an incredible, well-preserved whaling station, but also there's a museum there we can visit. We've got St Andrews Bay. We've got a lot of sites that we can visit. Of course, Pryan Island is something on our list. Pryan Island, unfortunately, we're not allowed to make a landing on Pryan Island anymore. There's nesting albatrosses, but we can still get in Zodiac cruise. You can get a closer glimpse of best incidents. So 9 days is really what South Georgia deserves. So these are some of the images that you can see from South Georgia. So this is some of the guests on one of our Zodiacs. We've got the penguins swimming in the Zodiacs. You've got the fur seal swimming around the Zodiacs, and that beach is just alive with activity. So you've got king penguins on there, you've got elephant seals, you've got fur seals. So it's an incredible wildlife experience, encounters like nowhere else. And again, this is another consideration for us running slightly earlier in the season. So those months of September and October, we still get very good wildlife. The king penguins are there, the albatrosses are there. We have the male elephant seals. They're often fighting for their sort of prime location on the beach at this time of year. And we've got the fur seals. Once we head into December, January, February, there's too many fur seals, and it actually makes landing impossible. So in those summer months, we can't land. Of course, we can Zodiac cruise, but we can't get our guests off the ship because there's too much wildlife. And of course, there's a lot of legislation and rules to protect the wildlife, and we don't want to be disturbing it. So that's why we're running in September, October, where we still got very good wildlife. We've still got an abundance of wildlife, but just don't have too much. So we can still land. We can still get you on shore. You can still go for the hike. You can set up for photography on shore. So that is a key consideration of why you should go in September and October as well. So yeah, as we say, so king penguins is one of the biggest draws. 100,000 strong colonies across the coastline. As I've mentioned, elephant seals basket on the beaches, but also early season you've got those males fighting on the beaches, which is an incredible sight, quite aggressive, but an incredible sight nevertheless. And then the seabirds. So the crossing from Falklands to South Georgia, we've got many albatrosses, petrels following the ship again. So we've got incredible photography opportunities or birding opportunities before we've even arrived. And then once we arrive, it really, really comes alive. But yeah, this image here is early season in South Georgia, so real beautiful conditions. So again, some of our guests down in South Georgia, and as I did mention, we've got incredible icebergs in South Georgia as well. The way the current works, it does push a lot of icebergs from Antarctic Peninsula up to South Georgia. So you've got incredibly big icebergs in South Georgia. As I say, it is 36 passenger ship. So we're replicating exactly our offering in Antarctica, in South Georgia as well. And of course, some of the hiking possibilities in South Georgia are wonderful. So if you are particularly active and you are into hiking, as I say, we're going to have 6 guides on board. If there's a group who want maybe a bit more of a strenuous hike up one of the mountains or a bit more of a trek, we can have that, and the other guests can be doing Zodiac cruising if you're not up for the hike. So yeah, really varied program what we can offer. So exactly the same ratio. So for every 6 guests, every one expedition guide. And yeah, just a glimpse of some of those views. So for those who do go on those hikes, this is what you'll be rewarded with. But for those of you who want a more easy, gentle excursion, we can cater for that too. And of course, we have spoke about the wildlife a little bit, but it is the king penguins in South Georgia, which do rule the land. So you can see these colonies in their thousands. So not just the king penguins, there are other species in South Georgia as well. So we've got the Gen 2s, the string chaps, but we've also got the macaronis, which we often see in South Georgia. Some beautiful chin straps, macaronis. And yeah, fur seals. So as we mentioned, so fur seals, 50% of the world's population of elephant seals is in South Georgia. So you've got the elephant seal here. And you do occasionally spot other seals, such as a leopard seal, crab-eater seal, the Waddell, but it's really the fur seals and the elephant seals which rule the beaches of South Georgia. And then, of course, at sea, we're always looking, and the captain, the crew, the officers up on the bridge, they're always looking for whales. And of course, you always have a chance of spotting whales. You've got humpbacks, southern fin, blue whales in the area. And yeah, of course, the albatross. You've got a number of albatross species that you can spot in South Georgia, which is a big draw. But you have got cormorants, you've got the giant petrels, and you've got the skuas as well. So a real birding destination, and often from the ship. As soon as we set sail from Port Stanley, the bird count starts. So any of you who are interested in birding, do get in touch. Let us know. We'll be more than happy to share with you our birding reports from previous expeditions that we've run, just to give you a bit of an understanding of what you are likely to see on this voyage. And of course, it's a landscape, so you've got these towering cathedral icebergs. So yeah, which add a lot to these images of this scenery. And then there is a history and the culture of South Georgia. So, of course, South Georgia was a big whaling destination back in the back hundred years ago, and of course, it's incredibly famous for Shackleton. So, Shackleton, this is where Shackleton he left some of his crew down in Antarctica. They actually ended up overwintering down in Antarctica. And whilst Shackleton and some of his crew went to get help. Now, they crossed from the Antarctica Peninsula, well, one of the South Shetland Islands, to South Georgia. An incredible feat how they made it to South Georgia alone. But what actually happened, where they landed in South Georgia, they still had to trek to Grytviken. They had to trek over South Georgia to get to Grytviken, to get to one of the whaling stations to get help. So that was a 5-day trek in its own, off the back of, how they did it is incredible. But you're stepping in Shackleton's footsteps. His grave is in South Georgia, and that is a key part to go and see on all of our South Georgia expeditions. So as I say, we've got 2 voyages that we are offering to South Georgia. So we have the South Georgia Antarctica Shackleton Special, which we've been over the 20-day voyage. which starts in the Falklands, South Georgia Peninsula, back to Ushuaia. But we also have the in-depth South Georgia, which is the longest expedition, 14 nights, 15-day expedition. So that is going to be your most in-depth exploration of South Georgia, which is available on the market. But how are we getting there, and where we'll be staying? So this brings us on. So I'm incredibly excited to introduce us to the Aureum, so the MV Aureum. So she is a purpose-built X-36 guest micro expedition ship. So this is her. So you can see she is a really, really beautiful ship. So just 36 guests down in Antarctica, down in South Georgia. So just think of what that does, 36 guests getting off a ship into 4 Zodiacs. That process, it can be completed within sort of 15-20 minutes. You're not going to get that on larger ships. There's no waiting around. So a very, very intimate experience on board. So yeah, deploying Zodiacs, it's incredibly quick. You'll get to know the crew, just 36 guests. You'll get to know your fellow crewmates. You'll get to know all the crew, the captain, the first officers, the steward, the stewardesses. So it's a real family feel on board, and that's what makes it so special. So one key consideration is that the ship operates on a diesel electric propulsion system, and we've got a very big battery bank as well. So that does help us with the emissions. But also, if we are having sort of sightings of whales, we can actually switch the sort of diesel engine off and just purely rely on electric. So, of course, it's much more friendly to the whale, but also for us, it's a much more peaceful experience. So that is a real beautiful thing to witness these whales with no engine running, just pure silent electric engine running. So cabins on the ship. So this is one of our suite cabins. So you can see these beautiful, almost floor to ceiling windows offering fantastic views of South Georgia and Antarctica. But the cabins, so 36% of the cabins are single cabins. So we've got 6 signature single cabins. We've got 2 classic single cabins. Every cabin has its private ensuite, so there's no sharing of facilities. And to touch on the cabins a little bit more, so this is our suite. So we've got 4 suites, and then we have what we call our classic twins. So our classic twins have got the more the porthole style windows, slightly smaller, but we also have our signature twin double cabins as well. So these are going to be slightly bigger. So it's a really nice array of cabins. So just get in touch, speak with any of us. We can give you more details, more pictures of these cabins, and what will be work best for the trip. And then we have, like all of our ships, as long as the conditions are good, our ships are open ships. So guests can be out on the bow of the ship, beautiful observation decks. So yeah, really good. With only 36 people, you're not getting in the way of others. You've all got your own space to get the same, to have the same sightings, to get the same pictures as well. And then the service on board. So once you step on board one of our ships, or it's the same for all of our ships up in the Arctic, it's full board. We've got the crew taking care of you, so we can cater for any dietary requirement, whether you're vegan, gluten-free, vegetarian. Just let us know, and we can cater for that. That is no problem at all. So we've got various areas. So we've got a lounge bar area, which is also part of sort of an observation deck of the ship. But we've also got the dedicated restaurant as well. And then the ship has got other features. So like we've got the mudroom. So that's where you'll be getting on your overalls, your life jackets, and getting into the Zodiacs. And then we have the bridge, of course, which, as I say, we've got a lounge up in the bridge. So what a better place to have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, and interact with your crew. So yeah, as I say, so the 36 guests makes the seamless, very smooth, logistical for our expedition team, for the whole crew of the ship. It's a much smoother operation, and this really allows us to get you off the ship as much as possible. You know, if we're having particularly good sightings, and it's even sort of 9 p.m. on the evening, it's not unheard of that we disembark and get guests off. But we're looking to run 2 excursions a day. Down in Antarctica, we have got the option of kayaking as well. So we're going to be snowshoeing. So real varied program on board. And yeah, importantly, so she is a 1C ice class rating. So that does mean we can cruise through some of the sea ice, some of the pack ice. So yeah, as I say, we are pushing south on all of our expeditions. So yeah, we can have a better look at the cabins here. So this is a signature suite. So this is our top end cabin. This is on the top deck of the ship. So these beds, they can actually be configured whether you're wanting a twin bed or a double bed. It can be configured either way. But yeah, 24.5 square meters. So yeah, really spacious cabin, the biggest cabin on the ship. But what makes these cabins so special is you can see those windows, about the views you're going to be getting out to sea, out on Antarctica, out on South Georgia as well. And then this is the signature twin and double cabin. So again, configurable into a twin or into a double bed. Yeah, really still equally beautiful windows, offering some great views out. Private en suites. We got some very clever storage solutions on board. So I guess you can put away a lot of your clothing and of course your photography equipment as well. And of course we've got the latest sort of charging technology on board as well. So plenty of options for you to be charging your cameras, your phone batteries as well. And then we've got 2 types of singles. So we've got this signature single here. So we've got the slightly larger windows in the signature single, 12.5 square meters. So very generous cabin size for a single. And then we have the classic. So this is a classic twin or double. So we've got the porthole cabins, but still at 17.5 meters, very generous, lots of storage space within the cabin. And then we have the classic single as well. So 12.5 square meters, so still a good size, but we've got the smaller porthole window. But yeah, fantastic option all around. So yeah, very excited to give you a very quick introduction. Today's webinar was a very quick overview. We are actually going to be doing a series of webinars starting early September, and we're going to be having some of our expedition team join us on those webinars, and we're going to be focusing on the destinations in a bit more detail, focusing on South Georgia, so focusing on Antarctica. So keep an eye out on your inboxes. But for now, if anyone has any questions, please, you can get in touch with us. So secretatlas.com. Any general inquiries for sales at secretatlas.com. Or you're more than welcome to email myself, which is lewis@secretatlas.com. And then we've got our numbers in the UK, we've got our US toll-free number, Australian toll-free number. We're available. You can book a consultation on our website. So if you want a one-to-one video call with one of the expedition specialists to talk about any of our expeditions in more detail, please do get in touch. But yeah, thank you ever so much for watching.